These are in listen-only mode.
Well, good afternoon to all, and welcome to our KTN webinar, sponsored by Resorts and Lodges and TrackPulse Hospitality Software. I'm Doug Kennedy with Kennedy Training Network. For those of you who have been joining us in the webinar series all year, you know that we're presenting these webinars under the sponsorship of Resorts and Lodges for the TrackPulse clients, and we also welcome all the Resorts and Lodges clients to join us. Track is our marketing alliance partner at KTN, so we help get the word out on their call and lead tracking software, which we think is a wonderful tool. Kennedy Training Network is our company based here in the Fort Lauderdale, Miami area. We do training worldwide, especially in North America, for all different types of hotels, resorts, vacation rental companies, call centers. A lot focusing on reservations training, but also in hospitality and guest service. So if you've been with us so far this year, this is actually our fourth webinar in the series. We're doing one per month, approximately one per month. We're going to skip some months here in the summer coming up. We started out the year with reservation sales tactics circa 2016. What's different about sales in today's world? We then covered doing the basics, but doing them extremely well. Then last time we looked at asking the right questions to discover the story behind the calls that you're receiving every single day. So a quick refresher on the last webinar before we jump into our topic today, which again is using the value pyramid as a sales model to sell the relevant benefits. In order to be able to sell relevant benefits, we first want to make sure that we ask the right questions. As we've covered in the very first webinar and ever since, when it comes to information today, the balance of power has shifted to the caller's side of the equation. In other words, in the past, people had very little information, such as what they might get from one of these old-fashioned phone books, or a tourism guidebook, or the AAA Auto Tour book, or the Fedora's Guide to your state or part of the country. Whereas today, most of them have been online, on the phone, and many of them are on the phone while they call. So whereas in the past, we had to do more talking, in today's world, we want to ask more questions and do more questioning. Okay, so to kind of, again, walk you through that, and just in case we do have people, either companies joining us for the first time, or perhaps you're that new person sitting in the room with your colleague. A lot of people are online while they're on the phone. Okay, and this is why very often we get the question, hello, where are you? Are you there? Oh, good. Or if you answer the switchboard, very often the person starts off by saying they want on-site reservations or in-house reservations. So a lot of people are online because they want that local area expert. Do your callers ever visit TripAdvisor.com? By far and away the #1 travel planning website. Instagram, oh, I just realized I need to update their logo. It just changed last week. The Facebook, Twitter, Flipkey if you're in the vacation rental space, or Yelp, which is a website that is now a noun, just like Uber is a website. Now, Ubering around is something you can do if you don't want to drive. Yelping around is something you can do if you want to figure out where to eat, or in some cases where to stay. So a lot of people have gone to online guest review websites, or they've read their friends' social media postings. As a result, they're often confused. They read the best reviews and the worst reviews, and sometimes they're both writing about the same thing. One exercise I just did in training a local client call center here that's a private third-party call center, we had done some training for them, different accounts. They have different agents covering different hotels and hotel groups. So I asked them each to pick a hotel that they sell a lot. We went to TripAdvisor, and this is something I recommend you do as well if you haven't already done so. And then take a look at your reviews for your hotel, click the 5-star review, and click the 1-star review. And very often what you find, the person is writing about the very same thing. Love it or hate it, they're both talking about the front desk, they're both talking about the restaurant, they're both talking about the beach if you have a beach. Next up, a lot of people have visited OTAs, which is online travel agencies, or other listing websites, okay? So we know that many people start out at booking.com, hotels.com, Orbitz, HomeAway, Expedia, VRBO, or that wonderful website, Resorts and Lodges. Well, what happens is when people go searching online first, especially with listing sites, they become confused, all right? So, or they become, I'm sorry, in this case, overwhelmed, maybe overwhelmed and confused. So some people are confused with online guest reviews, whereas others are simply overwhelmed by the number of choices, the number of options they're considering. So in summary then, the point is they already have plenty of information, okay? Rather than jumping into a scripted list of features, okay, which we also call our elevator speech, that's not what we want to do today. You know, that was sales in the past. Had you gone through training with me in the 90s or the early 2000s, you know, that's what we would do. We would figure out if they stayed here before, and if they hadn't, we would launch into, you know, my old company called it a positioning statement. The kind of the latest word for this is the elevator speech, okay? So as you're waiting from floor 20 down to the lobby, what would you say if someone said, oh, where do you work? What's that hotel like? So instead, we want to figure out why it is they called instead of proceeding with booking online. As you've often heard me say, if you've been with me, you are not supposed to have this job. I am not supposed to have a job training you because no one is supposed to call anymore. With all of the details we have online, people are supposed to look online and make that decision. Instead, what's happening is, you know, we still have plenty of people booking online, but we have many people that call and then book online. Some people book online and then call. But a lot of people are confused, and that's why they pick up the phone. There's nothing better we can do than go ahead and convert them while they're on the phone, because if we let them go back online, first of all, they might go to a different website and book a different hotel, or they might go to a third-party website, not a listing service like Resorts and Lodges, but rather an Expedia, where you're going to pay a large commission. Okay, so or again, they might pick someone else off that list. So what we want to do is unmask the caller's story. We want to take them from this to this. And the more we can do to ask the right questions, the caller will self-reveal their call story, all right? And then we can move on to the next level, which is what we're going to cover in today's webinar. We can move on from finding them helping them find what is available, to instead helping them decide, helping them commit right here, right now. So our mantra, one of our mantras anyway, is that it is not our job to help them find what's available, but rather it is our job to help them decide, help them pick right here and right now. So that brings us up to today's webinar that we'll cover with you today. Excuse me one moment. Okay, so it's not our job to help them find what's available, but rather it is our job to help them decide, help them commit. And that is our key to personalized selling. So our last review from our last webinar, remember now the single most important question circa 2016, we're going to say, hey, what are your dates? When are you arriving and departing? How many adults and children? Do you have a special room type or accommodation in mind? And then we click enter, and while we're waiting for the reservation system to return inventory, this is a great time to fill in what would otherwise be dead air. It's a great time to say, hey, as I'm checking those dates, are there any questions I can answer for you, such as about our location, about our amenities, about our services? And that gives us a chance then to sell value over price. So we call the model here at KTN the Hotel Value Pyramid Model. Is a model that we use to help people understand the importance of selling the overall experience and not just being a room renter, okay? So if you ever go to a social event or a barbecue or a cookout or a party and someone says, hey, what do you do? I don't think you're going to say, hey, I'm a room renter, want to book one? We sell vacation experiences. Now, a lot of my clients have changed the titles of their colleagues to vacation planning specialists, or if you're not in the vacation business, maybe you're one of our corporate city center hotels on the call today, you are a reservation sales agent. We are not room renters, okay? So if we ask the right questions, we figure out which level we need to start on the value pyramid to sell the overall experience, okay? And if you ask the right questions, you'll know where to start. So let me share a couple different versions of this. The first one is our hotel or resort model, where we first start talking about the destination and location. We then cover the amenities, the services, either on-site if you're a full-service resort, or if you're a mid-market limited service that has rooms only, or if you're a vacation rental company, then these would be services in the area. So in other words, if you don't have a restaurant on-site, you certainly have a lot in the area. So we want to talk about levels 1 and 2 first before we get into rooms or suites. Similarly, in the vacation business, vacation rental business, privately owned vacation accommodations, or some of the condo hotels that may be on our call today, we again start with the foundation, which is destination and location, and then the amenities and services, both in the home, in the community, if the rental home is located in a development such as a residential development or a townhome community or an actual condo building. And then, of course, what's in the area. So in the vacation rental business, the nearby grocery stores, the attractions, the destination management companies, the companies that do catering, that rent you beach chairs, that rent the equipment that you need during your vacation. So bike rentals, boat rentals, perhaps ski equipment. And then finally, home or the condo. Now, alternatively, this is how most lodging companies sell. The first thing they do is you say, hey, I'm planning my vacation. I'm so excited. They say, when is it? How many nights? How many people? How many beds? Doesn't matter what you tell them, that's how they're going to react. A lot of places you call up, you say, hey, it's my 10th anniversary. When is it? How many nights? How many people? How many beds? You could call up and say, hey, it's my honeymoon. When is it? How many people? How many beds? Don't think you're special. You're caller 19. I had 19 before you, and I got about 32 more for this shift is out today. So that's a room renter. What that person does, they treat the reservations call as if they were in the technical support for the website booking tool company. In other words, what's the matter, buddy? You can't book it online? Don't you know how to work a website? Let me help you. What are your dates? How many people? How many nights? Here's the price. Got a pen? Okay. What we want to do is realize if we ask the right questions, they're going to tell us what is it they didn't find online. They're going to tell us who they are and why they're calling. Okay. Now, I know there may be some days you want to ask it like that. Who are you and why are you calling me? But if we say, hey, as I'm checking availability, any questions about our location, about our amenities? Isn't that a much more polite way of saying it? And then we get a chance to sell the experience and not just rent a room, okay? So the amount of time someone spends in the guest room awake is actually quite minimal when you think about their overall travel time. So let's say, there's, of course, sleeping in the room. Well, that doesn't make much of an impact because when you turn the lights off, they are all the same. But if you're going to go on vacation, you're going to probably go to the beach, you're going to go skiing. If you're on a business trip, you're going to go to a meeting, you're going to go to an event, you're probably going out to dinner, you're probably going to some type of entertainment. So the actual amount of time in the guest room is minimal. Really, what's most important is the destination that they're visiting and the location of your accommodation within that destination. So we really want to be experts on selling the destination. We want to be able to talk about the amenities, the services, and the outlets, again, in the hotel, in the community if you're in the house rental housing business, and then, of course, the room or suite. And so that's what really makes the most impact on a travel experience. If you think about the amount of hours awake versus the dollars spent, They're spending a lot of money if all they were doing is renting a room, okay? No logical person would spend the kind of money we charge on a per awake hour basis. You know, we look at RevPAR, which is revenue per available room. Thank goodness our guests don't look at dollars spent per awake hour. Let's see, that would be DSPAH, DASPA. What's your DASPA at your hotel? Dollars spent per awake hour or hours awake? That's a lot of money. Let's take a $200 rate. Some of you may be higher than that, especially this time of year going into season. Some of you might be lower than that, especially if you're a ski resort that your peak season's over. But 200 is a nice round number. Let's take a 24-hour stay where we allow a guest to check in, by the way, not till 4 o'clock, and we make them leave either at 11 a.m. or noon. So really they get, let's say, 20 hours. Then they're going to sleep about 8. Okay, so now we're down to 12 hours. And then, again, the time they're going to spend out at visiting the attractions, doing the activities. Let's say maybe they're actually awake in the guest room 4 hours, or let's say 5 hours. $200, 5 hours, $40 an hour. Okay, if I'm thinking correct, that's somewhere around 66 cents a minute, okay, of their wake hours. So that's not what it's about. It's all about they're spending that money for the overall experience. Now, some callers are repeat guests. When you say, hey, I'm checking availability, do you have any questions? No, we've stayed there before, okay? They already know the location, the amenities, the services that are offered. For these callers, you can save yourself some time. Just top off the value pyramid by offering the room, the suite, or the vacation home rental, okay? Now, other callers know your destination and location, but they've never been a previous guest with you. For these callers, you can start off at the mid-level, describing the amenities, the services, the outlets, and then the top level, which is the room, the suite, or the vacation home. So in this case, have you stayed with us before? No, we usually stay down the road, across the street. Oh, wonderful. You don't have to sell your destination. You don't have to tell them how far to the airport. You don't have to tell them how nice the beach is or how close to the ski mountain. Finally, we have callers that have not even been to the destination itself. And these callers, we need to sell all the relevant details about all 3 levels to sell the overall experience and not just a place to sleep. So that's why if we say, hey, as I'm checking availability, any questions I can answer for you about our location, about our amenities, about our services, we get a chance to talk about the great advantages that we're able to offer from our wonderful location and within our destination. Sometimes the competitor is not the resort down the street, but rather another destination. So they might be choosing between visiting you at the beach, going to Disney World, or Disneyland if you're out west, or going on a cruise. So we really want to be experts at our destinations and locations. Also, that's a way to outsell your competition. A lot of people are sending calls to call centers, okay? And there's some great call centers out there. I know we train a lot of them. But there's some not so great call centers out there that have no clue. They hate this type of training. They don't want to say, hey, do you have any questions? Because they can't answer those questions. But you're on site. You're at the hotel. You're able to do so. We want to know what they need to hear before we start talking, and then we know which levels to talk about. So first-time visitors, we want to sell the relevant details about all 3 levels. And if we're, by being able to proactively mention relevant benefits and to offer local insiders tips, this is how we can outsell and outservice the competition when we're comfortable providing that information. So the more we can tell them the details, the better off that we are. People love local insiders tips. One of the newest trends with guests today, and you hear this particularly with the millennial generation, the people that are now currently 19 to 36 in age, they like, and also this goes for really all types of all generational travel in today's world. People are looking for the unusual, something beyond the normal. Although Ruth's Chris is a great steakhouse and Bonefish offers a wonderful seafood selection, and people will always like to go there, they really want to move outside of Cheesecake Factory and they want to try that little Italian place that only the locals know about. They really want to try that nightclub that's a bit underground, or they really want to try going to that cool boutique that has the locally made handicrafts rather than going to the Gap at the mall. So local insiders tips. Now, quite often, locals are the worst ones to ask. So some of you may be thinking, yeah, I lived here 10 years. I've never done any of those things. Okay, I'm a perfect example. I spent 22 years growing up in Lexington, Kentucky. When I mention Kentucky as I travel the world, the first thing people think of is Kentucky Fried Chicken. Well, I don't like fried chicken. Some people say, oh, moonshine, because they watch those TV shows about the hillbillies from eastern Kentucky. Well, I don't drink, so I can't speak to that. And also, the number one thing is, Kentucky Derby. Well, I've never ridden a horse as an adult. So if you're coming to Kentucky and you want to hear about bourbon, I really am not your guy. If you're coming to hear about horses, can't tell you. But if I worked in a hotel there in Kentucky, I would make it my job to be experts at all of those things. So if you are in a beach place, look down at your skin. How's your suntan? I know I'm living 15 miles from some of the most beautiful, about 5 miles, 15 minutes from some of the most beautiful beaches in the world here in Florida. I'm pretty pale looking right now, even though it's mid-May. We do go to the beach when we have outside family coming to town. So make it your job to make sure you're up to date on not what you do in your town, but what the tourists do. And we are therefore able to talk about all of the unique components of staying with us at our, not just our rental properties and our hotels, but what's unique about our destinations. So being able to proactively sell your product is the key to selling the experience and not just renting a room for 66 cents a minute. Now, some guests don't know the right questions to ask. Others are simply not good at explaining themselves. So therefore, we want to make it our job to read between the lines and read the guests, okay, so that we can provide not just the answer to their question, but if we know the area and we know our guests, we can give local insiders tips, okay? So let me give you an example of that. My kids are older now. They're 17 and 18, so actually they like it when mom and dad go out for the evening. But back when they were little, we had to get a babysitter, and sometimes they would even rabbit us, no, don't go out, stay and play with us. But it was a really big deal when we would get to go out, so seems like it wasn't that long ago, at least not to me, maybe, I don't know, 10, 11 years. My wife came with me on a business trip, and so it was just us. Conference ended on Saturday afternoon, but we decided to stay over for Saturday night on the town. So Kathy got dressed up all nice, looking really good. We go down to the concierge desk, and we said, hey, we want to know the closest place to go dancing. Well, they looked at us and said, the closest place to go dancing? We said, yeah. Well, we're not really late-nighters, you know. We didn't want one of those places like down here in Miami that doesn't even get going till midnight. And so they said, okay, the closest place to go dancing, here you go. They sent us to, I guess you called them rave clubs back then, like 18 and over. We walked in. Oh, it was close by. And it was already going on because all the 18-year-olds were there, not old enough to drink. They had wristbands for people underage. But there they were, all wearing their, you know, glow sticks and flashing light badges, and there we are, just saying, hey, how about playing some Brick House, or play that funky music, or give us some R&B. So they answered our question. They told us the closest place, okay, but they didn't proactively volunteer the part that we didn't know to ask about. So sometimes you really want to give more than what they're asking for. For example, someone might say, how long does it take to get to the airport? You might want to say, when are you going? Don't assume they're going right then. They may be asking at 9 o'clock at night, and it might be 15 minutes to the airport, okay? But if they're leaving at 7:30 a.m. in rush hour traffic, or if they're leaving during a rainstorm, it might be, instead of 15 minutes, it might be an hour and 15 minutes. So where's a good place to go to eat? Don't send them to your favorite place. Take time to ask the question, hey, what type of food are you looking for? Do you want something more upscale? Do you want something authentic and local? Do you like seafood? Do you like sushi? Base the recommendation on their needs. So as you're selling your product and you're building the value pyramid, we're always going to get questions that we simply do not know the answer to. Now, I have an extra bonus tip for you, no extra charge. Now, if there's any new people in the webinar today, it's probably a big time of the year for resorts to hire new people because it's going on summer, so you don't know much for your first few weeks. Here's what you can say. That is a great question. I will find out for sure and let you know. Instead of saying, yeah, I think so, I'm pretty sure, yeah, I'm pretty sure the club's open at 10. Yeah, I'm pretty sure room service goes till midnight. Let's let them know. I will find out for sure, and I'll let you know. And compliment them. Hey, that is a great question. Now they're all happy, like, oh, wow, I asked a good question. I'm so good. Instead of saying, yeah, I think so, pretty sure, I'll have to check. When we say, I'll have to check, it's like, I don't really want to check, but I guess I'll have to. You could be that mystery shopper from Kennedy Training Network, or I'll have to check on that for you. If it wasn't all you callers interrupting us, we could get a lot more work done in this reservations department. So, great question. I'll find out, and I'll let you know. Now, here's some things to know, just as in examples. Accurate and estimated travel times, factoring in traffic. So we already talked about that. Tips on parking, transportation, admission, and fees. So when someone calls and says, how much is parking? Now, I don't know how much parking is at your place, but I was just in San Diego last week. They had a hotel there that charged $28 in parking. They get people that object to that. I feel like saying, talk to my client in Manhattan, $68, okay, or San Francisco, or I was about 3 weeks ago, $45. So when someone says, wow, $30 for parking, I know parking's at a premium. Are you sure you're going to need a car? Because, you might consider just taking a cab here or getting Uber. There is a bus, shuttle service, super shuttle, or perhaps if you're in a big city, recommending the train. Maybe where they're from, it's not an option. Let them know what it's like where you are, though. Also, local area restaurants, again, the out-of-the-way place. A lot of people on the webinar today might think, why would someone ask for a recommendation? I just go on Yelp. Well, Yelp doesn't always work. Now, Yelp might be good if you have a place in mind and you want to get some additional opinions, but if you're actually looking for a restaurant, it could be hit or miss. So when I took my wife to San Francisco, we met another couple there. They were actually from across the bay, so they didn't really know San Francisco that much better than we did. And so we were going to ask for a suggestion from the front desk, but we didn't have a great confidence in them, which I'll come back and tell you in a second why. So instead, our friend said, oh, no problem, let's just Yelp tonight. And that's when I realized Yelp is now a verb. So we ended up in a place, trying to think of the name, and it had a number in it, but it was in San Francisco. I probably shouldn't mention anyway because I don't want to bash the poor people, but they went on Yelp, my wife and her friend. They said, oh, this one looks great. My wife checked out the menu. They had fried green tomatoes. She's a country girl. She was by heart originally, and she was very excited about that. We also saw that, oh, there's a jazz band playing. Perfect choice. We get there, first of all, the place was hosting a private party that night. There was no music because of that. And the menu had changed since it got posted on Yelp. They no longer had fried green tomatoes. So we would have much rather had somebody that would recommend that for us. By the way, the reason we didn't feel confident in the front desk was because when my wife arrived the night before, I'd been there on business already. And so I picked her up from the airport, and we get back to the hotel. It was kind of late. She wanted to get a bite to eat and something to drink, so we went down to the front desk and said, is there a bar that's still open that might have some food? They said, oh, yes, I think there's one out the door to the left. So they sent us out the door to the left. First place we came in, well, they were a bar only. They didn't have food. So we walked several blocks more, and we finally found a bar that did have food, but very limited. The next day, we realized, had we gone to the right, just a little ways down the street, was the perfect spot for what we were looking for. So don't be like those hotels. Be the ones that don't send your guests to Yelp. Be the one that recommends and suggests. Also, resources for personalized service. Where's a good place to get a massage? Where can I get my hair done? What about a babysitter? And then also those hidden and overlooked gems, the attractions. So again, they already probably know about the local theme park or the historic museum, but if there's an interesting oddball attraction that can be of interest, be sure to mention that. I know down here in South Florida we have a water park called Rapids. We have the Jungle Island for kids where they have bird shows and animal shows. We have the Miami Metro Zoo. Everybody knows about that. But few people hear about something called Coral Castle. So if you ever come to Miami, I'll give you a local insider tip. It's a place where one gentleman who I think weighed about 125 pounds and when he was in his 50s carved out on his own a castle out of coral rock. It was for his beloved who had this woman, young woman he was in love with that didn't want to marry him. So he, as a testament of his love to her in the early 1900s, created a castle it's a very interesting local attraction. He made it all using regular hand saws, and he stacked the rocks up. It's kind of like a one-man version of Stonehenge. So that's the kind of place that is really interesting, off the beaten path. That's why people call. That's why you still have a job in reservations, and I still have a job training you. Now, to finish up our webinar today, I want to spend a couple minutes how to make the content that we're talking about sound relevant. So first of all, we have asked questions, and we know what they're looking for because we know the story behind the call. We also now have covered that we want to know our products, meaning the product being the attractions, the amenities, the services in-house and nearby. Now, we can have great information, but if we're not compelling and we're not engaging, we know that most callers today are highly distracted. Probably a lot of you can relate to all the calls we get where they're doing something else in the background, okay? Sometimes you might hear running water. You want to picture them in the kitchen doing the dishes, but it may be a certain type of whoosh. Sometimes you might hear them disciplining their children. If you really want to get your children's attention, pick up the phone, they come running, at least until they're teenagers. Also driving. So a lot of people are driving and planning their travel. We want to grab their attention because they are highly distracted. So at KTN, we call this the Just For You sales approach. It's a very easy way to include the caller in the descriptions. This is going to help them picture themselves enjoying what it is you are describing. So to keep it relevant and to keep it engaging, to grab their attention, replace we have, we offer with you will enjoy, you can take advantage of, you will receive. Okay? So when you hear yourself saying we have, we offer, that makes it all about you. Continue on to say we have it so you can enjoy it. We offer it so you can receive it. Or even better, just lead with you. Just say you will receive, you will benefit from, you will enjoy. Leave the we part off altogether. This is a wonderful way to grab their attention and engage them, and to make it sound, instead of a list, to make those benefits sound relevant and personable. Now, we want to make sure that we continue to ask questions in the spirit of quest to keep it interactive. Make sure when you're talking that you're listening for verbal cues such as, oh, really? And then periodically, well, especially if you're not getting any feedback from the caller, stop and ask a question. Even if you are getting the ooh, ah, wow, make sure to pause periodically, come up for air, and say, so how does that sound so far? Does that look like it's going to meet your needs? Is that room type sound appealing? Is that what you're looking for? Is that within your travel budget? Do you have any, or again, as we've talked about the value pyramid here, you say, hey, as I'm checking availability, any questions about our location, about our amenities, about our services? Some people have a lot of questions. Let's make sure we bring them to our town or our city first, and then are part of the destination within that town second, before we get into the rooms. So talk about location, talk about amenities, talk about what's nearby, and then say, all right, do you have any other questions about the locations before we review the accommodations or the rooms? Okay, and that's a wonderful way to check in and see, to make sure you've not lost their interest. And then finally, this is a great one, and if you were with me for doing the basics, doing them extremely well, we talked about at the very end of the call, be like that waiter. The waiter always says, certainly, I'll bring you some more bread. Is there anything else I can get you at this time? And that's why at the end of the call, we want to say, all right, so here's your confirmation number. Is there anything else I can assist you with? Is there anything else, other information I can provide you with at this time? And then we put a nice little bookend on the wonderful conversation that we just had with that reservations caller. So in summary then, today's webinar reiterated the point of who they are, why they're calling. There's more information than ever before in the history of the lodging industry at their fingertips. And yet, despite all that, they still pick up the phone and dial our number instead of booking online. Don't treat your job like a tech support job for someone who can't figure out how to work the internet. Instead, ask those questions. Hey, what brings you to town? Really? Have you stayed with us before? No. Well, as I'm checking the dates you just gave me, any questions I can answer for you about the location, about the amenities, about the services. You then figure out, who are you? Why are you calling me? Once we know that, we can provide relevant benefits in a detailed and personalized way. Talk about your destination and location first. Get them into your town or city. Bring them to your resort or hotel by talking about the amenities, services, and outlets, especially for the first-time callers. Top off that value pyramid with the room, suite, or rental company, rental home unit last. And if we do that, that leads us right into saying, may I go ahead and reserve it? May I confirm it for you? Well, thank you for joining us again. For all of you repeat customers of mine out there, also thank you for joining us for the new people who may have been with me for your first webinar. Thank you to Resorts and Lodges and Track Hospitality Software for sponsoring and promoting this today. Thanks, Nick, for setting it up and for recording this session. If you are interested in a copy for any of your colleagues who could not attend today, please reach out to Nick Regis, or you can also reach out to me personally if you'd like more details about our training services, webinars, and mystery shopping. Thank you, everybody. Have a wonderful afternoon.